Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and welcome to our new lecture in Translation 1 course. The first thing that we're going to do is to do quick revision about the last thing we had discussed in the previous video. We talked about the main strategies of translation, such as we have here literal translation. The second strategy was like semantic and communicative translation. It was the second and the third strategies that we talked about, and we said that communicative strategies like attempts to produce the same effect, نفس تأثير what the source text, even though there is like some change or manipulation in the translation. However, semantic translation attempts to render as closely as the semantic and syntactic structure of the second language, allow the exact contextual meaning of the original. So we can say that semantic translation is closer to the source reader. However, communicative translation is closer to the target reader. We can say that semantic translation is source language oriented. However, communicative translation is target language oriented. And if you remember, I talked in the last video, at the end of the video, I talked about foreignization and domestication. I'm going to talk in detail about them, but semantic translation is closer or can be put under what? Under foreignization strategy. Why? Because the text may seem foreign to the target readers, since they focus on the text, the source text itself. However, communicative translation can be under domestication. Why? Because the translator here tends to, let's say, to make the text closer to the target audience, to make it natural, even though there is manipulation. Manipulation بمعنى في بعض ممكن يكون عندي تلاعب, some addition, deletion. It doesn't stick exactly or accurately to the source text. And we mentioned regarding the communicative translation, we mentioned some examples. For example, when I say لا شكر على واجب, if I want to use semantic in translation, I may say no thank for duty, no thank for duty. And this will not be comprehensible. But if I use communicative, the translation will be don't mention it. Don't mention it. ممنوع التدخين. If I translate it semantically, يعني نفس المعنى المباشر, the translation will be forbidden smoking, or smoking is forbidden. But it's not like very common in, let's say, target language, so it's better to say no smoking. I think you have come across such let's say utterances in the target culture. So we say no smoking instead of smoking is forbidden. So these are communicatively related. They focus on the effect. Focus here what? On the effect, not on the accurate form of the source text. And we discuss this example. For example, we say enough is enough. Now let's literally translate it. كفى يعني كفى. كفى يعني كفى, which communicatively means لقد طفح الكيل, بلغ السيل الزبا. For example, also now when we use communicative translation here, prevention is better than cure. We can say, for example, درهم وقاية خير من قنطار علاج. However, we cannot generalize that semantic translation is not a good strategy at all, because here semantic translation could be a good choice. For example, semantically, I can say الوقاية خير من العلاج, and it could be a possible translation. Also communicatively we can say درهم وقاية خير من قنطار علاج. So I cannot generalize, بمعنى أنا ما بقدر أعمم that semantic translation, for example, is a bad choice all the time. I think you remember when I talk about literal translation. It's true that literal translation have some problems. في إنها مشاكل بسببها literal translation. But I cannot say that literal translation is a bad choice every time. 100% it's a bad choice. No, sometimes, for example, I say literal translation is a good choice. When I say, for example, blacklist قائمة سوداء. For example, heavy industries الصناعات الثقيلة. Okay? So here, birds of a feather flock together. الطيور على أشكالها تقع. وقع الطريق صديقي بين المطرقة والسندان. My friend fell in trouble. Or I can say here between hammer and the anvil. Here على فكرة here is between, when I say between the hammer and the anvil, here it's semantic translation. Why? Because I follow the same form and the structure of the and the same meaning, direct translation. And here it's true. صح. When I say my friend fell between or is between hammer and anvil. Or I can communicatively translate it as my friend fell in trouble. Also, it's what? It's true. But for me, this is the stronger one, because it seems that it's not just an ordinary trouble. It's a very strong trouble that it's difficult to let's say to solve it. Okay. The fourth strategy حكينا عنها الادابتيشن. حكينا ان هي باغلب الاوقات بتكون في البلايز في المسرحيات، وبيكون امام المترجم he has some kind of flexibility, we can sometimes call it the freest type of translation. Also we talked about free translation, and we said that in this type of translation it renders content المحتوى rather than the form. And I think we talked about this example, cartel. Also we talked about zaka. Also zaka could be both under a descriptive translation. I can translate it by describing what does zaka mean. We talked also about idiomatic translation. Yes, and focus here, idiomatic translation, it's not necessary the idiom to be in the source text. It's not necessary. The idiom should be in the target text. For example, he did not get a thing. It's not an idiom, but it's translated into idiom in the target language. So he didn't get a thing. عاد خالي الوفاض أو عاد الخفاي حنين. Cool down. هدأ من روعك, etc. And here are some examples from English into Arabic. For example, here from the translation here is the source text. Here it's like this. Be careful, it's like this. From here is the source text, which has no idiom here, but the idioms are in English. So أشعر بوعكة صحية اليوم. It has no idiom here. The sentence has no idiom, but the idiom is I feel under the weather. ومش معناه أنا أشعر أنني تحت الجو. No, feel under the weather means وعكة صحية. Another example, الوطن أكثر مكان يشعرك بالراحة. It's translated as east or west, home is the best. تعصب لآرائه. he stuck to his guns. By the way, guns معناها أسلحة ممكن. yes. So also we talked about the metaphorical translation. We talked about the metaphorical translation, and here are some metaphors. If we start from Arabic into English, from Arabic into what? English. نهر يموت من العطش. Now, I ask you, does the river die from thirst? هل النهر يموت؟ No. So الميتافور هو عبارة عن تشبيه. It makes the river as if it is a human who dies from thirst. So here a river dies of thirst. تفتح الحقب. burgeoning here. burgeoning of the ages. تفتح الحقب بمعنى الازدهار، يعني يعني ازدهار بمستوى عالي. ميلاد الزمان birth of time. جرح في الهوية identity wound. Okay, these are the examples from what? From English into Arabic. From English into Arabic. Drowned in a sea of grief. بحر الأحزان. Like, is really grief can grief be considered as a sea? It's a metaphor. Sea of grief is a metaphor which is translated as بحر من الأحزان. غرق في بحر من الأحزان. Failure is an orphan. الفشل يتيم. Flames of injustice, etc. طبعا in the last Zoom meeting, if you remember, I asked you about the translation of ولما سكت عن موسى الغضب, and unfortunately most of you literally translated when, for example, word for word translation. But as I said in the last Zoom meeting, that first you have to understand the meaning. You have to understand the meaning. You are not you don't have necessarily to translate it word by word, but you have to understand to transfer the function. Now, what is meant by when I say from the Holy Quran ولما سكت عن موسى الغضب? Here simply it means when Musa calmed down. When Musa calmed down. Yeah, so you have to make what? You have to make intra-translation first. يعني تعمل translation within the same language. طرف المعنى. Then to provide interlingual translation. So here there are two processes. First, you may not understand the meaning in Arabic. يمكن في البعض ما يفهم يعني المعنى. فبنروح نعيد صياغة utterance أو sentence within the same language. We call this intralingual translation. ولما سكت عن موسى الغضب. هذا ميتافور شبه الغضب بإنسان يسكت. Okay, which means بالعربي ولما هدأ موسى. ولما هدأ موسى. So you can translate it as when Musa calmed down. Also, we talked about translation by addition. And we mentioned some examples. Here are more examples. Also, we talked about translation by deletion. For example, Air Traffic Control Center, مركز مراقبة جوية. Where is the deleted word here? Where is the deleted word here? It's what? Traffic. It's deleted. One-way ticket. Where's the deletion here? Okay. He deleted one way and substituted it with just the have. Fight to the bitter end. Bitter is deleted. Bitter is what? Deleted. Also, we talked about translating using a general word. For example, when I say mother tongue, mother, which means like لسان, they're translated to اللغة الأصلية. And we talked about paraphrase or descriptive translation. I think we mentioned the example عدة المرأة أو عدة, also ذكاء. And also here are we speak cameras, كاميرات. طبعا أغلبكم بالزوم لما سألكم حكيتوا لي كاميرات السرعة. Here it's كاميرات مراقبة السرعة. كاميرات مراقبة السرعة. Okay. So here is another example, bold face. Bold face, I think we discussed it also. So here I'm going to ask you a simple question. We have here two verbs which are print and type. If I ask you, what is the difference between print and type? What is the difference? What is the difference between print and type? Okay, simply. Print here means writing by one's, for example, writing one's name by hand. For example, أنا أمسك القلم وأكتب اسمي. For example, here ألاء. بمسك اسمي على سبيل المثال، بمسك القلم وبكتب by hand. However, type لما أمسك الكيبورد وأكتب. type بالكيبورد. print by hand. print by hand, type by keyboard. and print هنا بيفيدني في موضوع المحاكم، مثلا بالشهادات لما بطلب من حدا مثلا اكتب توقيعك في أمور المحاكم هيك عشان يعرفوا بالضبط كيف الفرق أو إيش الفرق ما بين ما يصير عمليات مثلا تزوير وغش، فبيطلبوا منه يكتب التوقيع يدويا. So here you have to be careful about the difference between what those two verbs. Okay, now if I ask you to translate this sentence, A.com is a company that does most of its business on the internet, usually through a website. Now A.com is a name of a company. A.com is a name of a company. And be careful that the names most of times are translated as they are. As they are. So some of you may go to Google, for example, and search for the translation of .com. What does .com mean? No, there's no need to Google .com and search what is the best translation for it. The easiest thing is to say like this. Sorry, I'm not good at writing. .com. The simple thing, .com as it is. .com هي شركة تقوم بأغلب أعمالها على الإنترنت، وعادة من خلال استخدام موقع، أو عادة من خلال موقع. إذا عمركم شفتوا في دوار شارع 10 وانتم رايحين على غزة أو انتم رايحين من غزة، في أحد دوار شركة اسمها هيك H&M. اسمها شركة H&M Company. تتوقع لو أنا بدي أترجمها كيف بدي أترجمها؟ هيك اسمها. مثلا بدي أحكي أنا H&M Company for example is a good company. كيف بدي أترجمها؟ توقعوا. فكروا. is a good company. عارفين إيش أفضل ترجمة؟ مباشرة إذا عمركم شفتوها وانتم رايحين على غزة هيك بحكي أنا H and M. ممكن يحكي شو هالاسم الغريب هذا، بس هذا اسم شركة أنا ما بقدر ألعب فيه. So here the best strategy is to borrow. I haven't talked about this strategy. Sometimes you need to borrow. زي ما أنا أحكي زكاة مثلا، عدة. تمام؟ هنا برضو النيمز بستخدم معها البوروينج. .com H&M company بحكي أنا شركة H&M. هنا بضيف بالبداية شركة H&M هي شركة مثلا جيدة etc. طيب, now let's go to one of the important question here, or one of the important topics. The two techniques, yes, which means that you can what? Borrow the term as it is and provide the reader with a definition. Why? Some terms may not be common to the target reader. Some terms the target reader may not understand. يعني في بعض المصطلحات لو أنا عملت لها borrowing لحال ممكن القارئ ما يفهم أنا شو بقصد، وبالتالي بكون عندي موضوع اللي أنا أستخدم borrowing plus definition, borrowing plus paraphrase, borrowing plus let's say explanation. So here the two techniques. يعني أنا بستخدم استراتيجيتين بالترجمة. This is a translation strategy in which two techniques or procedures are used to render source text lexical items. Generally, borrowing and explanation are used to render a source text unit. Let's consider this example. Commonwealth. لو أنا عملت borrowing لحالها وقلت لكم Commonwealth ممكن بعضكم ما يفهم إيش يعني Commonwealth. فعشان هيك they suggested to provide a definition or a paraphrase within or with borrowing strategy. So هي رابطة الشعوب البريطانية، هي رابطة تتكون من مجموعة دول. وهو اتحاد يتكون من 52 دولة جميعها من اتحاد الولايات البريطانية سابقا. So here are some examples. For example, console table. We can borrow the term as it is. consola عملنا لها بس هيك بعض phonological adaptation. console table كنسولة، وعملنا definition مائدة مستندة إلى حائط تحت مرآة. طبعا if you google it, this picture is like a console table. We have a mirror and then there is a table under this mirror. So bungalows we heard the term bungalow وهي المنازل الكبيرة ذات الطابق الواحد. For example, this picture is for bungalow. It's one house with just one roof, and usually they are big houses. For example, this is bungalow. This is bungalow. So burden gauge مقياس بوردل لقياس ضغط السوائل. هنا بوردن تقلت نفس ما هي بوردن. سافانا كتير واحنا بالاعدادي في مادة الجغرافيا كان معنا سافانا، نقرأها سافانا as it is سافانا, which means أرض معشوشبة. So here borrowing plus explanation are used. Okay, now I'm going to the main important question in this lesson. We keep talking about several strategies methods. حكينا كتير عن هذه الاستراتيجيات، ولكن السؤال الرئيسي والسؤال الأهم، أنا كمترجم طب أي استراتيجية أستخدم السيمانتيك، أستخدم الكوميونيكاتيف، طب أعمل addition ولا deletion، طب مرة أنتوا بتحكوا borrowing، مرة طب أنا شو أعمل؟ Now what is the best translation؟ شو في أنا أحكي لي أنا كطالب أحكي لي شو في يعني استراتيجية أنا أعتمدها. How can I know which is the best strategy? Okay. Now حاتم on Monday stressed that it remains debatable. يعني ما زال الأمر ماله مش متفق عليه. debatable من debatable عمالهم بيتحاوروا. whether it's possible العلماء طبعا علماء الترجمة whether it's possible to determine any universals يعني يعملوا استراتيجية وتكون universal عالمية or indeed a general theory of translation that is valid يعني تكون صالحة لكل التكست. اختصر لنا الكلام حاتم أنبي. it's debatable يعني ما لحتى الآن الحوارات شغالة وما في يعني كلام قطعي بإن أنا أستخدم استراتيجية universal تكون عالمية and valid to all the types or all the time. طيب there are some factors that may affect my choice. في أنا عندي بعض العوامل وممكن ذكرت جزء منها في المحاضرة اللي فاتت. جزء منها الذاكرين كان الكونتكست والأوثر زائد التارجت ريدر. في عندي كمان عوامل ممكن تأثر like what? For example, number one, what's the purpose of the translation? شو غرض الترجمة؟ What's the purpose? Is it for example literary translation؟ هل هي ترجمة أدبية؟ Is it scientific translation? Why I ask such questions? Because the way you are going to deal with scientific translation, for example, is not the way you are going to deal with literary translation. In scientific translation, you cannot add or delete في الترجمة مثلا الطبية. You don't have the flexibility. ما معك يعني المساحة من المرونة إنك تضيف وتحذف. No. وإلا ممكن يصير أخطاء يعني or there could be some disastrous problems مشاكل فادحة. But in literary translation على سبيل المثال عندي رواية أنا، والرواية أنا المين هدف الأساسي من الترجمة إني أطلع ترجمة تسعد القارئ، يقرأ ترجمة ناتشرال ما يحس فيها يعني as if he's in a journey كأنه برحلة ويكمل هذه الرحلة. Here I may, for example, use some communicative translation. I may add or delete some, for example, some cultural, let's say, elements to the target reader, so he can like read it naturally without any hindrances in reading. Again, the type of translation زي ما أنا ذكرت شو نوع النص وشو هدفه. Okay, now these are the two main questions for me. I want now to talk about Newmark V diagram. طبعا هو ليش اسمه V? What do you think? Why do you think its name is V? Why? Why do you think the name is V? V because it resembles the letter V. Now this scientist هذا العالم اسمه نيومارك classify translation types. قسم لي أنواع الترجمة which are لنوعين. النوع الأول source language bias يعني منحازة للغة الأم بتميل إلها منحازة إلها بتغوز لها. النوع الثاني target language bias تقول لك لا أنا يا عمي ميالة ناحية التارجت لانجوج، أنا بدي أحترم التارجت لانجوج والتارجت ريدر. طب نشوف شو هما الأنواع. Now اللي بتركز على السورس وبتحترم السورس لانجوج والسورس تكست تقول لك لا هذول الناس إيش بيحكوا؟ إحنا بدنا نحترم النص الأصلي، ما بدناش نغير ونبدل على كيفنا. سواء فهم القارئ أو ما فهمش إحنا ملناش علاقة. The main focus is or should be on the source language. تركيزنا الأساسي على source language. We have to respect the source author ولازم نحترم source author الكاتب الأصلي. يعني neglecting the target reader بغض النظر هو فهم ولا لا. زي إيش؟ أنا word for word translation literal translation faithful طبعا faithful من إخلاصي يعني والسيمانتيك اللي حكاها نيومارك. تمام؟ طب what are the target language emphasis or strategies؟ الادابتيشن زي ما حكينا ممكن يصير بالدراما، الفري ترانسليشن زي مثلا ترجمة كارتل فاكرينها، idiomatic communicative translation. الجماعة هدول بيحكوا لا احنا لازم نحترم ونقدر ونحط القارئ محور اهتمامنا بغض النظر ايش كان مكتوب في النص الأصلي. أنا كمترجم بدي أكون حريص جدا that the target reader will understand what I'm saying. I may add, I may delete, I may manipulate, whatever, but the most important focus is on the target reader and the target, let's say, text and the target text. So this is the end of this video. I'm going to make another video talking about a very important topic, which is equivalence. It's a very important topic, so next time please prepare equivalence. We're going to talk about also yes, the scholarly views. Now, what do scholars say about equivalence? We're going to discuss some views, and also we're going to talk about equivalent effect and yes, and the levels or typology of equivalence. So thank you for watching and see you next times.